Have you ever had an incredible idea you couldn't wait to get started on, but halfway through you realized to finish your masterpiece, you simply would need more time? Now, assuming you had to deliver, you were forced to lower the bar moving forward, and you couldn't wait to not be working on it. So that happened to me with my last 3D scene, the one I did for the Infinite Journeys 3D Community Challenge. Now, I take pride in tackling ambitious ideas with attention to detail. So naturally, I tend to bite off a little bit more than I can chew. But this time was the first time that my ambition got the best of me. So this video isn't about optimized workflows or the perfect topology, but rather an honest breakdown of my art and everything I could have done to avoid what happened. Since I was a kid, I've always loved intense activities. Whether it's going off jumps on my rollerblades, riding roller coasters, doing martial arts, driving fast cars, or hitting 6 Gs in a stunt plane, I'm there for it all. So I wanted to bring a sense of speed and intensity to my Infinite Journeys 3D art. Now, at first, I didn't know what to create. And after a few days of unsuccessful brainstorming, I decided to just take a break and go rock climbing. Sometimes, the greatest ideas pop up in the in-between moments, when we're focused on anything other than the idea itself. And that's when the perfect idea hit me. Or so I thought. Imagine a pilot, moments before takeoff, attempting to break the land speed record. He starts his rocket car, flips a bunch of switches, shifts into first gear, and blasts off. The G-forces push him back into his seat as the background rushes by, and you got little trinkets, wires, and straps flapping from the inside of the car. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but I had just made a massive mistake. I overestimated the time I had available and underestimated the workload I was about to take on. This is something that can quite often get me in trouble. Now, I will say though, that starting your idea with something as simple as a sketch is a great way to creatively keep on track through the project. And building a reference board is another must-do for me as it informs my art while I create. Once I had a direction to go in, it was time to open Cinema 4D and block out my 3D cockpit. With blockouts, I focus on basic composition and lighting, testing my concept in a simple 3D form. It'd be a waste of time to lay out details at this point, because I'm still experimenting with the basic shapes. Only when I'm happy with my basic composition can I move on to the details, which honestly is where it starts to get pretty dark. It was important for me to custom model as much as possible. I feel it's a great way to get a unique look as opposed to relying on kit-bashed assets that everyone recognizes. Now, in theory, I'm all for this. But in practice, I did not have the time. Yet I modeled away. Everything from the racing chair and the dashboard to the steering wheel and the vintage monitor to the roll cage and its details. Minimalism was not an option here. I still have to animate, I still have to texture, I still have to render, and I need an additional 2 to 3 weeks at this rate. I realized mid-project that I had gone too far. It was an extremely tedious and horribly slow process because I'm honestly not the best 3D modeler, and the only saving grace was McMaster-Carr. They're an industrial equipment supplier who also provides CAD models too. It definitely came in handy for some of the smaller switches and knobs when time got really short. Now, with 4 days from the deadline, I had to call it quits on the modeling. Looking back, I realized I put myself in this situation by choosing an overly ambitious idea. If my original goal was to capture a sense of speed and intensity, I should have just crafted a simpler idea focused on that specifically. Because now I only have 4 days to texture, find a 3D character, animate that character, build 3 custom HUDs in After Effects, fine-tune my lighting, somehow render all of this locally, composite in After Effects, add sound design, and finish the top 100 montage. I was happy to move on to texturing because honestly, it wasn't modeling. And also texturing's a blast for me. Adding scratches, dirt, dust, grime, smudges, all those beautiful little surface imperfections really bring a scene to life. And it's super satisfying when you... Actually, hold on, wait a second. I'm not gonna see like half of this detail from God dang it. You'd think I learned my lesson at this point. I was procrastinating from doing the work I was afraid of by doing the work I enjoyed. But ultimately, I was forced to texture from my main camera view, which just makes way more sense in this scenario. A lesson learned too late is better than one never learned. And with 3 days left, it was time to get smart and cross this finish line. So I busted out Rococo's new Smart Suit Pro 2 to drive my character's movement. And the only way to ensure that my movement connected to the 3D control panel I built was to reassemble my furniture in cockpit form, get Rococo and Cinema 4D communicating through LiveLink, and record some goofy looking takes. Yeah, there'd be some cleanup to do, but without the suit, honestly, I'd have been screwed. Now, when you have a mocapped character front and center for more than 5 seconds in a render, you're gonna see a lot of small inconsistencies, especially in my case when you want the character to interact with objects in the scene. Luckily, Sam helped me fine-tune the tough spots while I continued working. And there was no way I was about to create my first character from scratch in 1 day, so I downloaded this guy from cgtrader.com, one of my favorite sites for 3D assets. 2 days left, all right, and it was time to create a custom heads-up display for both the dashboards and the CRT monitor. I pulled a couple of references from NASCAR dashboards and some rocket car videos on YouTube. I sketched a rough in Photoshop, busted out the for real version in After Effects, saved that out as a transparent PNG sequence, and dropped it onto my dashboard as an emissive material. And with my last half day before rendering, I fine-tuned my lighting using a Grayscale Gorilla HDRI, and I made adjustments to the sun to best shape my scene. For the atmosphere, I faked it by plugging a simple black and white gradient into an opacity channel and applied that material to a series of stretched out planes. To sell the effects the high speed had on the rocket car, I added a vibrate tag to a few of the levers. And finally, I cloned a number of mile markers across the midground to give a better sense of speed. With 1 day left, I was struck with a genius idea. Render farms. Why don't I just use everyone else's computer to render this thing? Honestly, it was my last hope. So since I've always used Octane as my renderer of choice, their cloud render farm called Render made perfect sense. So I exported my scene, uploaded to the render network, chose the appropriate settings, and watched the frames roll in. It was a dream come true, honestly, to get this up and running, especially in crunch time like this. The process was fairly straightforward once I got the hang of it, but it definitely took some stressful trial and error to set things up. So consider subscribing if you want an in-depth tutorial on Otoy's cloud service. And finally, it just came down to compositing. To simulate the camera shake, I filmed 2 post-it notes with my Sony a7R II while watching the render for timing. I 2D tracked the footage using Mocha AE, then toned it down with a simple position expression hooked up to a slider control in After Effects. Some film grain to dirty things up, and after a long 25 days, my render was finally complete. Some projects flow like water and are an absolute joy throughout. Other projects offer a massive challenge, but you're proud of the end result because it's a mark of everything you learned along the way. Then, there are projects like this, with a tight deadline and ambitious goals, with an end goal never achieved. To me, these are the toughest. You're simply just trying to do your best and survive until the end. You cross the finish line feeling like nothing was gained. Personally, I grossly misjudged the number of days I had to work on this, and underestimated what it would take to accomplish the art itself. In the future, I need to do a way better job of being first realistic with the days I have, and then plan to accomplish something achievable in half that time. Then I can decide whether I want to spice things up or move on to more important things with the time I have left. Being aware of this tendency before I start future projects is my biggest takeaway from this one. And even though I feel like the art suffered in the end, I consider this revelation a big win. So what did you guys learn from your last project? Leave a comment down below. I'll see y'all on April 30th at 10:45 a.m. PST for another 3D live stream. So subscribe if you don't want to miss it. And until then, keep learning, keep growing, and thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.